The heart monitor beeped steadily beside my hospital bed, a rhythm that should have been comforting but only reminded me I was alive when I didn't feel like it. My ribs ached with every breath. The cast on my left leg felt like concrete. 3 days had passed since the crash, and the morphine made everything feel distant and blurry. But when I reached for my phone on the bedside table, reality cut through the fog sharper than any scalpel. I unlocked the screen with trembling fingers and opened my banking app, the one I checked obsessively even during good times. The joint savings account, the one Marcus and I had built together over 8 years of marriage to finally buy our dream house, showed a balance that made my chest tighten. $0.00. Not low. Not reduced. Empty. Completely drained. Every single dollar we'd saved, gone. My vision blurred with tears that had nothing to do with physical pain. The betrayal hit me harder than the truck that had T-boned my car at the intersection 3 days ago. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I refreshed the app 3 times, convinced it was a glitch, some technical error that would fix itself. But the zero remained, cold and final. I scrolled through the transaction history, my heart sinking with each swipe. Withdrawal. Withdrawal. Transfer. Withdrawal. All authorized. All recent. All made while I'd been unconscious in this hospital bed, fighting to survive. The most recent transaction was dated yesterday at 2:47 p.m. While doctors were checking my vitals and adjusting my medication, someone had been cleaning out our account. I didn't need to guess who. There was only one other person with access to that money. My husband, Marcus. The same man who'd kissed my forehead before I left for work the morning of the accident. The same man who'd promised to handle everything while I recovered. I pressed the call button with a finger that wouldn't stop trembling. When he answered after 4 rings, I could hear music thumping in the background, people laughing, glasses clinking. A bar. He was at a bar while I lay broken in a hospital bed. "Hey, babe," Marcus said, his voice cheerful and relaxed like he didn't have a care in the world. "How are you feeling? They letting you out soon?" I could barely form words through the tightness in my throat. "Where's the money, Marcus?" The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds, but it felt like an hour. The background noise continued, carefree and loud, while my world collapsed. "What money?" he finally asked, but his tone had shifted. Defensive now. Guarded. "Our savings account. It's empty. All $1,670,000. Gone." He exhaled slowly and I heard him moving, probably stepping outside where it was quieter. "Look, Naomi, I can explain. It's not what you think." My fingers gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Then explain. Right now." Another pause. "I borrowed it for an investment opportunity. A sure thing. I'll have it all back plus interest in a few months. You know I'm good for it." Borrowed. Like it was his to take. Like $1,670,000 was pocket change. "What investment, Marcus?" The line went dead. He'd hung up on me. Mid-conversation. While I lay in a hospital bed with broken bones and empty accounts. I stared at the phone screen, watching his name disappear as the call ended. My chest heaved with something between rage and disbelief. This couldn't be real. Not Marcus. Not my husband, the man I'd trusted with everything for 8 years. We'd made that account together, saved every spare dollar, planned our future home down to the smallest detail. That money was sacred. It represented years of sacrifice, skipped vacations, secondhand furniture, saying no to ourselves so we could say yes to our dream. And he'd taken it. Stolen it while I was unconscious. Dr. Patterson walked in for evening rounds and stopped when she saw my face. "Naomi? Your heart rate just spiked. What's wrong?" I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking too violently. She moved closer, checking the monitors, her expression shifting from concern to alarm. You need to calm down. Deep breaths. Whatever it is, it can wait until you're stronger. But it couldn't wait. Nothing could wait. My own husband had just robbed me blind, and I was too broken to do anything about it. The wedding ring on my finger suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 2 days later, Marcus finally showed up at the hospital. I'd called him 8 more times. He'd ignored every single one. When he walked through the door carrying a small bouquet of gas station flowers, I wanted to throw them at his face. He smiled, that easy, charming smile that had made me fall in love with him 9 years ago. Hey, babe. Sorry I couldn't come sooner. Work's been crazy. I didn't smile back. Sit down, Marcus. His smile faltered slightly, but he obeyed, settling into the chair beside my bed. He placed the flowers on the table like they were some grand gesture. So, about the account, he started, his voice carefully rehearsed. I know you're upset, but you're overreacting. It was an investment opportunity that couldn't wait. My business partner needed capital immediately, and I knew you'd understand if I explained it properly. Every word felt calculated. Practiced. Like he'd been preparing this speech in front of a mirror. You didn't ask permission, I said flatly. Because you were in a coma, Naomi. What was I supposed to do, let this opportunity slip away while you slept? The audacity was breathtaking. He actually believed this was reasonable. That our life savings was his to gamble with. I forced myself to breathe slowly, to stay calm even though I wanted to scream. When will you pay it back? Marcus shifted in his seat, glancing at the door like he was calculating escape routes. Soon. Maybe 6 months tops. This investment is about to explode, and then we'll have double what we started with. Triple, maybe. You won't even remember this happened. $1,670,000. 6 months to repay. If he ever did. The doubt must have shown on my face because he leaned forward, grabbing my hand with sudden intensity. Come on, Naomi. When have I ever let you down? We're partners. This is what marriage is about. We support each other's decisions. Marriage. The word felt like poison. He squeezed my hand once more, then stood up, checking his phone. I gotta run. Important meeting. But we're good, right? I didn't answer. He left anyway, whistling as he walked down the hospital corridor. The moment the door closed, I grabbed my phone and texted my friend Camila, the one who worked as a teller at Pacific Union Bank. I need a favor. A big one. She responded within minutes. Anything. What do you need? Printed statements. Every transaction from our joint account for the last 6 months. Can you do that? There was a pause. Then, for you? Absolutely. I'll bring them tomorrow. Camila showed up the next afternoon with a thick manila envelope tucked under her jacket. She glanced around nervously before handing it over. This could get me fired, she whispered. If anyone finds out I pulled these without proper authorization. I squeezed her hand. Thank you. I won't forget this. She left quickly, and I tore open the envelope the moment I was alone. Page after page of transactions, highlighted in yellow where the largest withdrawals occurred. My stomach turned as I read through them. $7,000 to BetKing Sports. $4,000 to Lucky Strike Gaming. $10,000 to an account belonging to someone named Sienna Hayes. Another $200,000 to the same Sienna Hayes 3 weeks later. $400,000 to a luxury hotel in Miami. The pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't a one-time investment opportunity. This was systematic theft, months in the making. Marcus had been draining our account long before my accident. He'd just gotten bolder when I was unconscious and couldn't stop him. The gambling apps. The mysterious woman. The luxury hotel. None of this had anything to do with business investments. My hands trembled as I pulled up my laptop and searched for Sienna Hayes on social media. It took less than 3 minutes to find her. Sienna Hayes had an Instagram account with 15,000 followers and a feed full of designer clothes, exotic vacations, and champagne-soaked parties. Her most recent post showed her lounging on a yacht with a caption that made my blood boil, living my best life thanks to my generous man. Some women just know how to be appreciated. The comments were filled with heart emojis and envious friends asking about her mysterious boyfriend. The post was dated 3 weeks ago. Right around the time $10,000 disappeared from our account. I scrolled further back. There were photos of her at the same Miami hotel from our bank statements, wearing jewelry that must have cost thousands, posing with designer shopping bags and captions like "When he treats you right" and "Blessed beyond measure." Every luxury, every indulgence, funded by money that was supposed to buy our dream house. Money we'd saved by working overtime, skipping date nights, driving old cars while our friends upgraded. And Marcus had used it to impress a woman who posted bikini photos for internet strangers. I screenshotted everything. Every post, every caption, every comment where she thanked her secret benefactor. Then I cross-referenced the dates with the bank statements. Perfect matches. Transaction after transaction aligned with her posts. The evidence was damning and irrefutable. My husband hadn't just stolen from me. He'd used our future as his personal ATM to fund an affair. That night, I removed Marcus from my emergency contacts list. I didn't block his number yet, just removed him from the places that mattered. I didn't want the temptation to call him screaming about what I'd discovered. Rage would get me nowhere. I'd learned that much from watching my parents navigate difficult situations over the years. Mom used to say, "Anger makes you stupid. Strategy makes you powerful." So I got strategic. I created a new folder on my laptop labeled Evidence and began organizing everything methodically. Bank statements in one subfolder. Screenshots of Sienna's Instagram in another. Transaction dates cross-referenced with her posts in a detailed spreadsheet. I documented every text message Marcus had sent me, especially the ones where he promised to have it all back soon and called it a temporary investment. I recorded the date and time of his hospital visit, wrote down his exact words as best I could remember. Every lie. Every dismissal. Every manipulation. The morphine made it hard to focus, but I forced myself to stay awake. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about dignity. About refusing to be taken advantage of ever again. By 3 a.m., I had a comprehensive 40-page document detailing every theft, every affair expense, every broken promise. Now I just needed to decide what to do with it. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. The message was short and infuriating: "You'll get it back with interest. Chill. Stop stressing about everything. Trust me. Chill. $1,670,000 stolen, and I needed to chill. Stop stressing about my husband draining our life savings behind my back. No apology. No remorse. Just arrogance wrapped in casual dismissal." I read the message 3 times, feeling something inside me shift and harden. The old Naomi would have called him crying, begging him to understand how much this hurt. Would have believed his promises and given him another chance because that's what wives do, right? They forgive. They trust. They stand by their husbands. But that Naomi died in the hospital bed 3 days after the crash. This version had no patience left for people who mistook love for weakness. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I made a phone call to someone I'd gone to college with, someone who'd become a divorce attorney specializing in financial fraud cases. Her name was Brielle Santos, and we'd stayed close over the years. When she answered, her voice was warm and professional. Naomi? It's been forever. How are you? I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I need legal advice about divorce. And possibly criminal charges against my husband. Brielle arrived at the hospital the next afternoon with a briefcase and a recording device. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything. The joint account. The crash. The empty balance. Marcus's dismissive attitude. The affair expenses. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and exhaled slowly. This is financial exploitation and marital fraud. You have an extremely strong case. She pulled out a folder and spread several documents across my bed. Here's what we can do immediately. First, you can file for legal separation and freeze all joint assets. Any property, vehicles, or accounts in both names get frozen pending divorce proceedings. I nodded, my heart racing. We also petition the court for exclusive use of the marital home if you're listed on the deed or lease. That removes him from the property legally. My pulse quickened. Can we really do that? Brielle smiled, the kind of smile that meant someone was about to get what they deserved. We can. And we should. He's proven he can't be trusted with shared finances. A judge will see that clearly, especially with your evidence. She pulled out more paperwork. We'll also need to document everything for the divorce proceedings. Theft from a joint marital account is complicated, but with proof of an affair and financial deception, we can make sure you get everything you're entitled to. 2 weeks after I was discharged from the hospital, I went to our apartment for the first time since the accident. Marcus had texted that he'd be out all afternoon at a business meeting, which I now understood meant meeting Sienna. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew something was wrong. The living room looked different. The television was gone. My grandmother's antique side table had vanished. I walked through each room with growing dread, cataloging what was missing. The expensive cookware set we'd received as a wedding gift. The laptop I'd bought myself for freelance work. My camera equipment worth $3,000. And then I opened my jewelry box in the bedroom. Empty. Completely empty except for cheap costume pieces. The diamond earrings my mother had given me on my wedding day were gone. The pearl necklace from my grandmother. Even my college class ring. I called Marcus immediately, my voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Where's my jewelry? He answered on the second ring, sounding annoyed. What? My jewelry. My mother's earrings. Where are they? Silence. Then, casually, oh, I had to sell some stuff to cover expenses while you were in the hospital. Medical bills and all that. Just temporary. The room spun. I gripped the dresser to stay upright. You sold my mother's earrings? The ones she wore at our wedding? Relax, Naomi. They're just things. We can buy new ones later. I hung up and immediately called Brielle, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. When I told her about the stolen items, she listened carefully before responding. This is called dissipation of marital assets. He's liquidating property to fund an affair or hide money before divorce. This actually helps our case significantly. Within an hour, Brielle had drafted an emergency motion for the court. But I wasn't interested in waiting for legal proceedings anymore. I needed Marcus to believe everything was fine between us. I called him back, forcing my voice to sound calm and conciliatory. I want to fix this. Between us. No more fighting. He sounded immediately suspicious. What do you mean? I mean we're married. We took vows. Fighting won't bring the money back or solve anything. Maybe we can work together, start fresh. I'm willing to forgive everything if we can move forward properly and rebuild our trust. The relief in his voice was immediate and nauseating. That's what I've been trying to tell you, babe. We're stronger together. This is just a rough patch. Every marriage has them. I forced myself to smile even though he couldn't see it. I need you to sign some updated insurance papers for our assets. Protection in case something happens to either of us. Brielle recommended it for our financial security. Marcus agreed without hesitation. Sure, whatever you need. Just email them over and I'll sign tonight. The papers I sent Marcus weren't insurance documents. They were postnuptial agreement forms granting me sole ownership of all jointly held property and establishing separate finances going forward. Brielle had drafted them carefully, using language that sounded mundane and bureaucratic to anyone not reading closely. The document also included a confession clause where Marcus acknowledged withdrawing marital funds without consent. Marcus signed them without question and returned them within 24 hours. All set, babe, he texted. Told you we'd figure this out together. I didn't respond. I took the signed documents straight to Brielle's office, where she filed them with the family court as part of our divorce petition. The trap was set. Marcus had just signed away his rights to our apartment, our car, and any claim to marital property. He didn't realize it yet, but he'd also provided written admission of financial misconduct. I felt no guilt. Only cold, clear satisfaction. While I waited for the legal process to unfold, I started documenting everything else. I took photos of the empty spaces where my belongings used to be. I made lists of every item Marcus had sold without permission. I estimated their value using online resale sites and appraisal guides. The total came to nearly $22,000 in stolen property. Combined with the $1,670,000 from the bank account, Marcus had taken nearly $90,000 from me in less than a year. That number kept me awake at night. 3 weeks after I got home from the hospital, a bill arrived in the mail that made everything click into place. It was from the hospital billing department, but the charges seemed wrong. When I called to clarify, the billing specialist explained that someone had attempted to use my insurance card to cover charges for a different patient admission. We caught it during review, she said. Someone named Marcus Holloway tried to admit a female patient under your policy, claiming she was a dependent. But our records show you have no dependents listed. My hands went numb. Who was the patient? There was a pause. I can't give you that information due to privacy laws, but the admission was denied and we've flagged it as potential insurance fraud. You may want to contact authorities. I knew without asking. It was Sienna. Marcus had tried to use my insurance to cover medical expenses for his mistress. This wasn't just about stolen money anymore. This was insurance fraud. Medical identity theft. Federal crimes. I called Brielle immediately. She answered on the second ring. I have something new, I said, my voice tight. Something serious. When I explained the insurance fraud attempt, she went silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, Naomi, this is a criminal matter now. We're not just talking about divorce anymore. This is fraud with potential federal charges. My heart hammered. How serious? Serious enough for jail time if prosecuted. Medical identity theft carries steep penalties. I closed my eyes. File whatever paperwork you need to file. While Brielle prepared the legal documentation, Marcus made his next move. He'd apparently used the last of the stolen money to invest in a business venture with a friend, a detail shop called Premium Autoshine on the south side of town. He sent a text to both our families inviting everyone to the grand opening. Come celebrate my new business venture. Food, drinks, and family discounts for everyone. The audacity was breathtaking. He was throwing a party with money he'd stolen from our marriage. My mother called me immediately. Are you seeing this? Is he serious right now? I assured her I was seeing it. And yes, he was completely serious. The grand opening was scheduled for Saturday at noon. I told my mother I'd be there. She sounded shocked. "You're going? After everything he's done to you?" I smiled to myself, looking at the recording device Brielle had given me. Wouldn't miss it for anything. That Saturday, I dressed carefully. Nice jeans, a simple blouse, minimal makeup. I wanted to look composed but not threatening. I arrived at the detail shop 20 minutes after it started, when the crowd was thick enough that I could blend in. Marcus stood near the entrance, shaking hands and accepting congratulations like he'd built an empire instead of a small detail shop with stolen money. He spotted me and froze for just a moment before his showman's smile returned. "Naomi! Babe! You came." I walked up and hugged him briefly, feeling him relax. "Of course. You're my husband." I spent the next hour circulating through the crowd, chatting with relatives and mutual friends while my phone recorded in my jacket pocket. The audio quality would be perfect. Marcus was in his element, telling anyone who would listen about his brilliant business sense and entrepreneurial instincts. I positioned myself near a group that included my mother and two of Marcus's co-workers from his previous job. Marcus joined us, riding high on attention and free beer. "Honestly," he said, laughing, "this was so easy to pull off. Naomi was worried about that hospital money, but she's always been too trusting. Too soft. Even now, she believes everything I tell her." The group shifted uncomfortably. Some of them knew what he'd really done. Marcus didn't notice or didn't care. He kept going. That savings account was just sitting there, right? And she was unconscious anyway, not like she needed it immediately. So I figured, why not put it to good use? She'll forgive me. She always does. That's the beauty of marrying someone who loves you more than you love them. My mother's face went pale with rage. Marcus's coworker looked at me, then at Marcus, clearly disturbed. But Marcus continued, encouraged by the alcohol and his own ego. "Marriage is about leverage, you know? She's not going to actually divorce me. She's too scared of being alone. That's why this works." Every word was captured clearly on my phone. Every confession. Every admission of calculated theft. Every cruel dismissal of my worth. I smiled and nodded, playing my role perfectly. Monday morning, Brielle received the audio file, the insurance fraud evidence, and a formal request to proceed with both divorce and criminal complaints. She called me 3 hours later, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. The audio recording is admissible in divorce court. Combined with the bank statements, the insurance fraud attempt, and his signed postnuptial agreement, we have an absolutely devastating case. My heart raced. What happens now? I file for divorce citing fraud and financial misconduct. Simultaneously, I forward the insurance fraud evidence to the district attorney's office. He's going to be facing legal consequences from multiple directions. I thought about Marcus's smug face at the detail shop, the way he'd bragged about manipulating me. The way he'd called me too soft, too trusting. How long until something happens? The divorce will take months to finalize, but the criminal investigation can move quickly with this much evidence. I'd estimate within 2 weeks, you'll see significant movement on that front. She paused. "Naomi, once we file, there's no going back. Your families will have strong opinions. Some people won't understand why you're doing this. Are you prepared for that backlash?" I looked around my small temporary apartment, at the life I was rebuilding from nothing. The physical therapy equipment. The empty spaces where my stolen belongings used to be. The absence of my mother's earrings. "I'm prepared," I said firmly. "File everything." 2 days later, Marcus's chief attorney received formal notice of divorce proceedings. 48 hours after that, the district attorney opened a criminal investigation into insurance fraud. My phone exploded with calls and messages. Some relatives were supportive. Others accused me of overreacting and destroying my marriage over money. Marcus's mother called me vindictive and cruel. His father said I was being too harsh over a business disagreement. But my mother, who'd watched me suffer through 8 years of Marcus's financial irresponsibility, sent a text that made me cry. Your grandmother would be proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for having boundaries. The family group chat became a war zone. People took sides. Arguments erupted about loyalty and forgiveness and what marriage really meant. Through it all, Marcus remained publicly silent. He didn't call. Didn't show up at my apartment to apologize. Didn't acknowledge the divorce papers. But I heard through mutual friends that he'd hired another lawyer, someone slightly more competent than the first one. Someone who'd probably already told him how badly he'd messed up by signing those postnuptial documents. 3 weeks after the divorce petition was filed, Marcus finally broke his silence. He posted on social media a long rant about toxic wives and how some women destroy good men over misunderstandings. How his wife had betrayed him when he was just trying to provide a better future. The comments section filled with people who didn't know the full story, offering sympathy and outrage on his behalf. I didn't respond. Didn't engage. Simply forwarded the post to Brielle, who added it to our evidence file as proof of his continued manipulation. For weeks after the divorce was filed, I was home making dinner when someone started pounding on my apartment door. Loud, aggressive, unrelenting. I looked through the peephole and saw Marcus, his face red with rage, veins bulging in his neck. Open this door, Naomi. We need to talk right now. I stepped back, heart hammering. I'd known this confrontation was coming eventually, but I'd hoped it would happen in a courtroom with security present. Marcus, go home. We can communicate through our lawyers. The pounding intensified, rattling the frame. Lawyers? You filed for divorce and ruined my life over money. Money that was half mine anyway. Open the door. I pulled up my phone and dialed 911, keeping my voice low and steady. I need police at 447 Riverside Apartments, Unit 3B. My husband is at my door making threats and I'm afraid for my safety. The operator stayed on the line, asking questions, keeping me calm. Meanwhile, Marcus's shouting grew louder, more unhinged, echoing through the hallway. You think you're so smart? Filing divorce papers and playing victim? That money was ours. I had every right to invest it however I wanted. Neighbors started opening their doors, peering out with concerned faces. Someone yelled for him to shut up or they'd call the cops. They're already on the way, I said through the door, loud enough for Marcus to hear. He went silent. Then the doorknob rattled violently as he tried to force it open. You're going to drop this divorce, Naomi. Fix this right now. Through the peephole, I watched the officers approach Marcus from behind. One of them called out firmly, Sir, step away from the door immediately. Marcus spun around, his face shifting from rage to shock to poorly concealed fear. What? I'm just talking to my wife. This is between us. The officer repeated the command, hand moving toward his belt. Marcus complied, raising his hands slightly in false innocence. I opened my door but stayed behind the chain lock, my phone still recording everything. The officers asked if I was okay, if I wanted to press charges for harassment and attempted forced entry. I have a restraining order petition already filed with the court, I said, which was true. Brielle had submitted it 3 days earlier. He's also under investigation for insurance fraud and financial crimes. That got their attention immediately. They asked Marcus for identification, ran his information through their system, and discovered the pending criminal investigation. Within 10 minutes, he was in handcuffs, being read his Miranda rights while neighbors recorded on their phones. This is insane! Marcus shouted as they led him toward the patrol car, fighting against the cuffs. She's lying about everything. That money was mine too. This is my wife destroying me. One of the officers responded calmly, "You can explain all of that to the judge, sir. Right now you need to come with us." I watched from my doorway as they placed him in the back of the cruiser. Marcus's face was pressed against the window, staring at me with pure hatred. I didn't look away. Didn't flinch. Just stood there until the car pulled away. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Marcus. Sienna Hayes, the mistress he'd spent tens of thousands impressing, posted a breakup announcement on Instagram within 12 hours of his arrest. "When someone shows you who they really are, believe them," she wrote dramatically, alongside a photo of herself looking wounded and philosophical. The comments were absolutely savage. People who'd envied her glamorous lifestyle now mocked her for dating a married fraud. She made her account private within 2 days and eventually deleted it entirely. The detail shop, Premium Auto Shine, closed within 3 weeks. It turned out Marcus had taken out a business loan using forged financial documents that claimed assets he didn't actually possess. When the bank investigated after his arrest and discovered the fraud, they called the loan immediately and seized the equipment. Without capital to operate, the business collapsed. Marcus's gambling debts, which he'd been juggling with stolen money for months, came due all at once. Creditors started calling constantly, showing up at his mother's house, even contacting his former employer. The friends who'd celebrated at his grand opening vanished like smoke. No calls. No support. No one willing to associate with him. I learned all of this through mutual acquaintances who somehow felt compelled to keep me updated. "He's lost absolutely everything," one of them told me. "Some people are saying you went too far, that you destroyed him." I thought about my mother's earrings sitting in some pawn shop. About the $1,670,000 gambled and spent on another woman. "What do you think?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "I think he destroyed himself." The divorce hearing was scheduled for a cold Thursday morning in December, 7 months after my accident. I sat beside Brielle at the plaintiff's table, watching Marcus enter with his attorney, a tired-looking man who'd clearly advised his client to settle but been ignored. Marcus looked thinner, older, defeated in ways that went beyond physical appearance. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Patricia Simmons, reviewed the case file with meticulous attention. She read through our evidence, the bank statements, the audio recording from the detail shop, the insurance fraud documentation, the postnuptial agreement Marcus had signed without reading. When she finally looked up, her expression was granite. "Mr. Holloway, did you or did you not withdraw $1,670,000 from a joint marital account without your wife's knowledge or consent?" Marcus's lawyer started to answer, but Judge Simmons held up her hand. "I asked Mr. Holloway directly." Marcus swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I did, Your Honor, but it was for a business investment. I intended to pay it back with interest. It wasn't theft." Judge Simmons looked at him over her reading glasses. "An investment that included gambling applications, luxury hotels, and purchases for a woman who was not your wife?" Silence filled the courtroom. The judge continued, her voice cutting. "You also attempted insurance fraud, sold your wife's personal property without consent, and according to this recording, you deliberately manipulated her trust. Mr. Holloway, this isn't a simple marital disagreement. This is systematic financial abuse." She looked down at the paperwork one final time. "I'm granting the divorce. All marital property goes to Ms. Naomi Holloway. You are ordered to pay restitution of $67,000 plus the value of sold property." For months after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter forwarded from my old address. The return address was listed as Pinewood Correctional Facility, where Marcus was serving 6 months for insurance fraud after taking a plea deal. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope, memories of our wedding day flashing unbidden through my mind. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten on prison stationery in Marcus's familiar slanted script. "Dear Naomi," it began. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or even your attention. But I need you to know that I've had a lot of time to think in here. About what I did. About who I became. I was wrong. About everything. The money, the affair, the way I treated you and our marriage. I convinced myself that I deserved more than what we had, that you'd never find out or care enough to leave. I was selfish, cruel, and stupid. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I couldn't see its value until it was gone. The letter continued for another 2 pages. Apologies stacked on top of explanations stacked on top of promises to change. He claimed he'd found religion in prison, was attending counseling, had finally learned what really mattered. He ended with, "I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope we can at least talk again, maybe find some kind of peace. I miss you every single day. I miss who we used to be. Love always, Marcus." I read it once, then twice, searching for sincerity beneath the words. Maybe it was real. Maybe prison had broken through his narcissism and forced actual growth. Or maybe this was just another manipulation, another angle, another way to get back into my life. I walked to the fireplace and struck a match. I spent the next 8 months rebuilding my life from the ground up. Not just recovering, but transforming into someone stronger. I moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment that was completely mine, no shared lease, no joint anything. I furnished it slowly with pieces I chose myself, each one representing independence. I took the restitution payments, small amounts garnished from Marcus's eventual prison wages, and opened a new savings account at a different bank. This one had only my name on it. No joint ownership. No shared access. Just mine. I went back to school part-time, finally pursuing the degree I'd put on hold when Marcus convinced me his career should come first. I made new friends who knew me as Naomi, not as Marcus's wife or Marcus's victim, just Naomi. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday, exactly 1 year after my accident. I sat in my apartment that evening, looking at the decree with my name restored to my maiden name, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness yet, that would come later, but genuine peace. The kind that comes from knowing you protected yourself, stood up for your worth, and refused to accept less than you deserved. My phone buzzed with a text from Brielle, "How are you feeling?" I typed back, "Free." And I meant it. Not because I'd gotten revenge on Marcus, though the justice felt deserved. Not because he'd lost everything, though the consequences fit the crime. But because I'd finally learned the most important lesson of my life: never let someone's betrayal break you twice. Protect yourself first. Trust carefully. Love wisely. And know that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who see you as something to use rather than someone to cherish. I looked around my small apartment, at the life I'd built with my own hands, and smiled.